11 low-value behaviors women don't realize they're doing. Have you ever stopped to wonder if your behaviors, habits, or mindset could be silently working against you? Imagine this. You're striving to be your best self, to live a life full of confidence, love, and respect, but something just feels off. Something keeps you from attracting the relationships, friendships, or even opportunities you deserve. If this resonates with you, I need you to stick around, because today we're diving deep into a conversation that's as uncomfortable as it is transformational. It's time to talk about the 11 signs of a low-value woman. Now, before we dive in, let me make something crystal clear. This isn't about judgment. This isn't about tearing anyone down or labeling someone as less than. Absolutely not. This is about growth. It's about recognizing patterns and behaviors that may be holding you back from living the extraordinary life you're capable of. Because here's the truth. Nobody wakes up and says, "I want to be low value today." Often, these traits creep into our lives so subtly that we don't even realize they're there. And the worst part? They sabotage our relationships, our self-worth, and our happiness without us even knowing it. So, why is this conversation so important? Because self-awareness is everything. Knowing your strengths is powerful, but knowing your weaknesses. That's transformational. When you can pinpoint what's not serving you, you can take control of your life and evolve into the high-value woman you were always meant to be. I'll be honest, this isn't going to be a fluffy, feel-good conversation. Some of the signs we'll discuss today might hit a nerve. You might feel defensive or even call yourself out, and that's okay. In fact, it's more than okay. It's the first step toward growth. If you feel uncomfortable, it's probably because deep down, you know there's a part of you that needs to hear this. Here's the beauty of it. No one is stuck. No one is doomed to stay the same forever. The mere fact that you're here, watching this, tells me you're open to growth. You're ready to shed the patterns that don't serve you and step into the confident, powerful, high-value woman you were born to be. And that's the goal of today's discussion. Over the next few minutes, we're going to unpack the 11 most common signs of a low-value woman. These are behaviors, mindsets, and attitudes that can chip away at your confidence, hurt your relationships, and prevent you from living the life you deserve. I want you to listen carefully, not with judgment, but with curiosity. Ask yourself, have I ever done this? Do I recognize this in myself? And if the answer is yes, don't panic. Self-awareness is the first step toward change. So buckle up, grab a notebook if you need to, and let's get into it. By the end of this video, you'll not only recognize these signs, but you'll also feel empowered to let them go and step fully into your worth. Let's start this journey together. Sign 1. Constantly seeking validation. Let's start with a big one. Constantly seeking validation from others. This is one of the most common signs of a low-value woman, and let me tell you, it's something a lot of us have been guilty of at one point or another. But what does it actually look like? Imagine this. Every time you post on social media, you're obsessively checking to see how many likes or comments you got. If someone doesn't respond to your message right away, your mind immediately goes into overdrive. Did I say something wrong? Do they not like me anymore? Or maybe in a relationship, you're constantly fishing for compliments. Do you think I'm pretty? Do you still love me? Are you sure you want to be with me? Sound familiar? Seeking validation isn't just about wanting a little reassurance now and then. It's about tying your self-worth to what other people think about you. And let me tell you something. It's exhausting, not just for you, but for the people around you. Here's the thing. When you constantly look to others to validate your worth, it sends a loud and clear message. You don't believe you're enough on your own. It's like you're holding up a sign that says, Please tell me I'm valuable because I can't see it myself. And let's be honest, that energy isn't attractive. It pushes people away instead of drawing them in. Now, I want to be clear. This doesn't mean you should never care about what others think. We all want to feel appreciated and valued by the people we love. But there's a difference between wanting connection and depending on others to define your value. When you rely on external validation, you give away your power. You're saying, "My worth is in your hands," instead of claiming it for yourself. So how do you break free from this cycle? It starts with self-love. You need to build a relationship with yourself where you know your worth, even when no one's clapping for you. You can't control what other people think, but you can control how you see yourself. And when you walk into a room radiating confidence, knowing you don't need anyone's approval to feel good about who you are, that's when everything changes. Here's the bottom line. A high-value woman doesn't need validation because she already validates herself. She knows she's enough, flaws, imperfections, and all. And that inner confidence? That's magnetic. Sign 2, being emotionally dependent. Now, let's move on to the next sign, being emotionally dependent. This one can sneak up on you because it often starts from a good place. You care about someone, you want to feel close to them, and you lean on them for support. But there's a fine line between leaning on someone and being completely dependent on them for your emotional stability. What does emotional dependency look like? It's when your happiness or sense of peace depends entirely on someone else. If they're having a bad day, you're having a bad day. If they're distant, your whole world crumbles. You're constantly seeking reassurance, clinging to them for comfort, and feeling like you can't handle life on your own. For example, maybe you're in a relationship, and instead of finding joy in your own hobbies, goals, and passions, you're sitting around waiting for their next text or phone call. Or maybe you feel anxious anytime they're not giving you attention, so you start overanalyzing everything. Why are they acting different? Are they pulling away from me? Here's the hard truth. Emotional dependency doesn't just hurt you, it hurts your relationships. When you're emotionally dependent, you put a huge amount of pressure on the other person to make you happy. And that's not fair. No one else can carry the weight of your happiness. That's something only you can do for yourself. On top of that, emotional dependency can make you seem needy or clingy. And let's be real, those traits aren't attractive. They can make people feel suffocated, which often leads to the exact thing you're afraid of: rejection. So how do you move from dependency to independence? It starts with building a life you love, outside of anyone else. Develop your own passions, set your own goals, spend time with your friends, pick up new hobbies, and create a life that's so full and satisfying that you don't need someone else to fill the gaps. When you're emotionally independent, you're not looking for someone to complete you. You're looking for someone to complement the amazing life you've already built. Remember this, a high-value woman isn't afraid to be alone because she knows she can handle life on her own. She's strong, she's self-sufficient, and she knows that the right person will only add to her happiness, not be the sole source of it. Sign 3, playing the victim. Let's talk about one of the most destructive signs of a low-value woman, playing the victim. This one might sting a little because it's a behavior a lot of people don't even realize they're doing. But here's the truth. Constantly blaming others for your problems and refusing to take accountability is a surefire way to lower your value in the eyes of others and in your own life. What does playing the victim look like? It's when everything is someone else's fault. Your relationships aren't working out. It's because all men are trash. Your career isn't where you want it to be. It's because your boss doesn't like you. You're struggling with your health or finances. It's because life is unfair. There's always an excuse, always someone or something else to point the finger at. Here's the problem with this mindset. When you play the victim, you give away all your power. You're saying, I have no control over my life. Everything happens to me and there's nothing I can do about it. And that's simply not true. While you can't control everything, you can control how you respond to your circumstances. Think about it this way. Imagine you're on a sinking ship. A victim mindset would have you sitting there saying, "This isn't my fault. Someone else caused this." Meanwhile, the ship keeps sinking. But a high-value mindset says, "Okay, this is where I am right now. How do I grab a life jacket and start swimming?" When you take accountability for your life, even when it's hard, you reclaim your power. You stop waiting for someone to save you, and you start saving yourself. That's what makes someone truly valuable. The ability to rise above challenges, take responsibility, and create solutions. And let me tell you something. Playing the victim doesn't just hurt you, it hurts your relationships too. Nobody wants to be around someone who's constantly complaining, blaming, and wallowing in self-pity. It's draining. On the other hand, a high-value woman inspires the people around her. She takes ownership of her life, even when it's tough, and that's what makes her a force to be reckoned with. Here's the takeaway. Life isn't always fair, and things won't always go your way. But when you stop playing the victim and start owning your story, that's when you truly step into your power. That's when you become unstoppable. Sign 4. Gossiping and tearing others down. All right, let's get into the next one. Gossiping and tearing others down. This one is sneaky because it's so normalized in certain social circles. But here's the truth. Engaging in gossip or constantly criticizing others says more about you than it does about the people you're talking about. And let me tell you, it's not a good look. Picture this. You're out with friends, and the conversation somehow turns into a critique session about someone who isn't there. Maybe it starts small, talking about their choices, how they look, or their relationships. Before you know it, the energy shifts into something toxic. Here's the question you have to ask yourself. Why do you feel the need to bring someone else down? Most of the time, this behavior comes from insecurity. When a woman doesn't feel good about herself, she might try to shift the attention away from her own flaws by pointing out someone else's. It's a deflection tactic. But here's the problem. High-value people, whether it's potential friends, romantic partners, or even colleagues, see right through this. Gossiping doesn't make you look strong or confident. It makes you look insecure and petty. Let's also talk about the energy you're putting out into the world when you gossip. When you focus on other people's flaws or failures, you attract negativity back into your life. It creates a toxic cycle that keeps you stuck. But when you focus on lifting others up, celebrating their wins, and genuinely rooting for their success, you attract that same energy back into your own life. Here's the reality. High-value women don't gossip, and they don't tear others down. Why? Because they're too busy building their own lives. They don't feel the need to compete with other women because they're confident in their own journey. And they understand that empowering others doesn't take anything away from them. It adds to their value. So next time you feel the urge to gossip or criticize, ask yourself, what does this say about me? Instead of tearing someone down, use that energy to reflect on your own growth. That's what separates a high-value woman from the rest. Sign 5. Thriving on drama. Let's talk about drama, because if there's one thing that screams low value, it's someone who thrives on creating chaos wherever they go. You know exactly what I'm talking about. This is the woman who seems to live for unnecessary fights, exaggerated problems, and emotional chaos. And let me tell you, this is one of the fastest ways to repel people from your life. So what does it mean to thrive on drama? It's when you seem to attract conflict like a magnet. Or worse, you create it yourself. Maybe it's picking fights in your relationships over things that don't matter. Maybe it's stirring up tension in your friend group by spreading secrets or pitting people against each other. Or maybe it's always finding a way to make yourself the center of attention by overreacting to minor inconveniences. Here's the truth about drama. It's exhausting, not just for you, but for everyone around you. High-value people, whether they're friends, partners, or colleagues, don't have time for that kind of energy. They're looking for stability, peace, and maturity, not chaos. So why do some women fall into the trap of thriving on drama? A lot of the time, it comes from a need for attention. When someone feels like they're not being seen or heard, they might resort to creating chaos just to feel important. But here's the thing, negative attention isn't the same as respect. And when you're constantly surrounded by drama, people start to associate you with negativity instead of value. High-value women don't need to create chaos to feel important. They command attention with their presence, their confidence, and their actions, not with drama. They bring peace and positivity to the spaces they enter, which makes people want to be around them. So if you catch yourself thriving on drama, it's time to take a step back and ask yourself why. What are you trying to gain? And more importantly, how can you meet that need in a healthier, more productive way? When you let go of drama, you make space for real connections, real growth, and real happiness. Sign 6. Lacking ambition or direction. All right, let's move on to one of the most overlooked signs of a low-value woman. Lacking ambition or direction. Now, I know this one might be tough to hear, but stay with me, because if this resonates with you, it's one of the easiest things to change. Here's the thing. A woman who doesn't have goals, dreams, or a sense of purpose can come across as uninspiring. It's not about having everything figured out. Let's be real, none of us do. But it's about having something you're working toward, something that gives your life meaning and excitement. Without that, you're just coasting through life, and that can make you appear stagnant or unmotivated. Let me give you an example. Imagine you're on a date, and the person across from you asks, "What are your passions? What are your goals?" And your answer is, "Nothing." You shrug and say, "I don't really know." How do you think that comes across? It's not about impressing someone else. It's about showing that you have a life you're excited about. Because here's the truth. Ambition is attractive. Passion is magnetic. Now, lacking ambition doesn't always mean you're lazy. Sometimes it just means you haven't taken the time to figure out what you want. Maybe you've been so caught up in what other people expect of you, your family, your friends, society, that you haven't stopped to think about what you want. Or maybe you're afraid to dream big because you don't think you're capable of achieving it. But let me tell you something. Every high-value woman you admire started somewhere. Nobody wakes up one day with their dream life handed to them on a silver platter. They worked for it. They set goals. They made mistakes. They learned. And they kept moving forward. So if you feel like you're lacking direction right now, don't beat yourself up about it. Instead, use this as an opportunity to figure out what lights you up, what excites you. What do you want your life to look like? Start small. Set one goal, just one. Maybe it's a fitness goal, a career milestone, or even something as simple as reading one book a month. The point is to start building momentum, because here's the truth. A high-value woman doesn't sit around waiting for life to happen to her. She goes out and makes it happen. She has dreams, she has goals, and she's not afraid to chase them. And that kind of energy, that's unstoppable. Sign 7. Poor emotional regulation. All right, let's talk about something that can really affect your value in the eyes of others. Poor emotional regulation. This one is big because how you handle your emotions, especially in tough situations, says a lot about your maturity and your self-control. So, what does poor emotional regulation look like? It's when you let your emotions completely take over your actions. It's the woman who lashes out in anger during an argument, says hurtful things she can't take back, and then tries to justify it with, "That's just how I am." It's the woman who gets jealous and insecure, checks her partner's phone, and spirals into accusations without real evidence. It's the woman who cries uncontrollably over every inconvenience or shuts down completely when things get difficult. Here's the hard truth. We all experience big emotions: anger, sadness, jealousy, frustration. But how you react to those emotions is what defines you. If you're constantly letting your feelings run the show, it can make people feel like they're walking on eggshells around you. And that instability, it's draining. People are drawn to those who can remain calm, composed, and collected, even in the face of adversity. A high-value woman doesn't deny her emotions. She acknowledges them. She feels them, but she doesn't let them control her. Instead of screaming or crying her way through conflict, she takes a step back, processes her feelings, and responds with clarity and intention. Now, I'm not saying you should bottle everything up or pretend to be emotionless. That's not healthy either. Emotional regulation doesn't mean avoiding your feelings. It means learning to manage them in a way that serves you and your relationships. For example, if you're angry, take a moment to cool off before responding. If you're feeling jealous, reflect on where that insecurity is coming from instead of lashing out. When you master emotional regulation, you send a powerful message to the world. I'm in control of myself. And that self-control, it's incredibly attractive. It shows strength, maturity, and confidence. So the next time you feel your emotions boiling over, pause and ask yourself, am I reacting or responding? That simple shift can make all the difference between a low-value and a high-value woman. Sign 8. Being superficial or materialistic. Next up, let's talk about being superficial or materialistic. This one's tricky because we live in a world that often prioritizes appearances, status, and possessions. But here's the thing. When your value is based solely on surface-level things, it becomes very obvious and very unattractive. Being superficial is all about focusing too much on outward appearances, whether it's obsessing over how you look, the brand of clothes you wear, or how much money you or someone else makes. Now, don't get me wrong. There's absolutely nothing wrong with wanting to look good or enjoy nice things. But when those things become the center of your identity, it starts to send the wrong message. For example, a superficial woman might judge people based on how much money they have or what kind of car they drive. She might prioritize material possessions over meaningful experiences or relationships. Or she might use her looks to gain attention, but never focus on building her character, intellect, or inner strength. The problem with this mindset is that it's shallow. And people, especially high-value people, will see right through it. Here's another issue with being superficial. It's fleeting, looks fade. Money comes and goes. Material possessions lose their shine over time. If your self-worth is tied to those things, what happens when they're gone? A high-value woman doesn't rely on surface-level attributes to feel valuable. Her confidence comes from within. She knows her worth isn't tied to what she owns or how she looks. It's tied to who she is. Now let's flip this around and talk about depth. A high-value woman focuses on her character. She's kind, intelligent, and authentic. She invests in her personal growth, her relationships, and her passions. Those are the things that truly make someone valuable, not their designer bag or perfect selfie. So ask yourself, am I putting too much emphasis on the superficial? If the answer is yes, it's time to shift your focus. Start building a foundation of confidence and self-worth that goes beyond appearances, because at the end of the day, substance will always outshine style. Sign 9. Disrespecting boundaries. Let's move on to something that's absolutely critical in any relationship: boundaries. If you're someone who disrespects boundaries, whether it's your own or someone else's, it's a major sign of low value. Why? Because boundaries are the foundation of trust, respect, and healthy relationships. So, what does it look like to disrespect boundaries? For starters, it could mean being overly clingy or invasive, constantly needing to know where someone is, who they're with, and what they're doing. It might mean ignoring someone's need for space or pushing your way into situations where you're not wanted. On the flip side, it could also mean failing to set your own boundaries, allowing people to walk all over you, saying yes when you want to say no, or tolerating disrespect just to keep the peace. Here's the problem. When you don't respect boundaries, it creates resentment on both sides. The person whose boundaries you're crossing will start to feel smothered or disrespected. And if you're the one failing to set boundaries, you'll start to feel used, undervalued, and drained. High-value women understand the importance of boundaries. They respect other people's space, time, and feelings. They don't need to control or cling to others because they're secure in themselves. At the same time, they're not afraid to set boundaries for their own well-being. They know their worth, and they're not afraid to protect their peace. Here's an example. Let's say you're dating someone, and they tell you they need a little time to themselves. A low-value reaction would be to take it personally. Maybe you bombard them with texts, guilt-trip them, or accuse them of pulling away. A high-value reaction, on the other hand, would be to respect their request and use that time to focus on your own life. The same goes for setting your own boundaries. If someone is crossing a line, whether it's a friend, a partner, or even a family member, a high-value woman isn't afraid to speak up. She'll calmly and confidently say, "Hey, I'm not okay with this," because she values her own well-being just as much as she values the relationship. At the end of the day, boundaries are about respect. Respect for yourself and respect for others. And when you can master that, you show the world that you're someone who knows her worth and commands respect in return. Sign 10. Competing with other women. All right, let's dive into one of the most toxic behaviors that not only lowers your value, but also creates unnecessary tension in your life: competing with other women. This one is so common that many women don't even realize they're doing it. But let me tell you, constantly seeing other women as your competition is a sure sign of insecurity, and it's time to put an end to it. What does this look like? It's the woman who can't celebrate another woman's success without making it about herself. Maybe she hears about a friend's promotion and immediately thinks, "Why didn't I get a promotion? What's wrong with me?" Or maybe she sees another woman looking great in a dress and thinks, "She only looks good because she's skinnier than me." This kind of mindset doesn't just create jealousy, it creates an endless cycle of comparison and resentment. Here's the problem. When you're constantly competing with other women, you're coming from a place of lack. You're essentially saying, her success or beauty somehow takes away from mine. But that's not how it works. There's enough room in this world for all women to shine. One woman's glow doesn't dim yours. It's not a competition, and it never was. Let's flip the script. A high-value woman knows how to celebrate other women. She's confident enough in herself to say, "Wow, she's killing it," and that inspires me to work even harder. Instead of feeling threatened by another woman's beauty, success, or confidence, she sees it as proof that it's possible for her too. High-value women build each other up. They create communities of support and empowerment because they know that collaboration is far more powerful than competition. So the next time you find yourself feeling envious or competitive, stop and ask yourself, what's the real issue here? Is it her success, or is it your own insecurity? If it's the latter, use that feeling as motivation to work on yourself. Because the truth is, when you're confident in your own journey, you'll realize you're not in competition with anyone else. Your only competition is the person you were yesterday. Sign 11. Lack of self-respect. And now we've reached the final sign, and arguably the most important one, a lack of self-respect. If you don't respect yourself, it sets the tone for how others will treat you. And let me tell you, nothing lowers your value more than allowing disrespect into your life. So, what does a lack of self-respect look like? It's staying in a toxic relationship because you're afraid of being alone. It's tolerating bad behavior, whether from a partner, a friend, or even a coworker, because you don't want to rock the boat. It's neglecting your own needs and constantly putting others ahead of yourself to the point where you're running on empty. Here's the reality. People treat you the way you allow them to. If you don't set boundaries, speak up for yourself, or demand respect, people will take advantage of that. And over time, this doesn't just hurt your relationships. It erodes your self-esteem. You start to believe that you don't deserve better, and that's a dangerous mindset to fall into. But here's the good news. Self-respect is something you can reclaim, no matter where you are right now. It starts with setting standards for how you want to be treated and sticking to them. It's about saying, I deserve better, and I won't settle for less. It's about walking away from situations that don't serve you, even when it's hard. Self-respect also means taking care of yourself, physically, emotionally, and mentally. It's not just about how others treat you, it's about how you treat yourself. Are you prioritizing your health? Are you investing in your growth? Are you surrounding yourself with people who uplift you? Because the more you respect yourself, the more others will respect you too. Remember, a high-value woman doesn't compromise her self-respect for anyone or anything. She knows her worth, and she's not afraid to walk away from anything that doesn't align with it. That's what makes her powerful. That's what makes her magnetic. Conclusion. Stepping into your power. Here's what I want you to take away from this. No matter where you are in life right now, you have the power to change. The fact that you're here, reflecting on these behaviors, means you're already ahead of the game. Self-awareness is the foundation of growth, and once you've identified what's holding you back, you can start to rebuild, evolve, and rise into the high-value woman you're destined to be. Being a high-value woman isn't about being flawless or never making mistakes. It's about how you respond to challenges, how you learn from your experiences, and how you show up for yourself and others every day. It's about living authentically, loving yourself, and radiating confidence, not because someone told you to, but because you've claimed that power for yourself. Remember this, you are in control of your story. You're not defined by your past, your insecurities, or your mistakes. Every single day is an opportunity to rewrite the narrative, to let go of what no longer serves you, and to step boldly into the life you deserve. This journey won't always be easy, and that's okay. Growth is uncomfortable, and change takes time. But the most powerful thing you can do is commit to yourself. Commit to your self-worth, your happiness, and your potential. Because when you do, everything else will fall into place. You've got this. Thank you for being here, for reflecting, and for choosing to grow. Remember, you're stronger than you think, more capable than you realize, and worthy of everything you desire. Keep moving forward, and until next time, take care of yourself and step into your power.